What's up? What's up? Can you see me already? So I'm going to be looking at games from the classical tournament that's been running. We just finished week 3 here, and pairings are going up as we speak very quickly, thanks to our diligent volunteer tournament directors for round 4. So you guys will be able to get those games going. Start setting them up already tomorrow morning. You can send out messages to your future opponents. Howdy, howdy. Glad to hear everybody's good. Maybe I'll put out a quick tweet. My apologies for anybody who hates social media, but I occasionally tweet. Pretty much just that my shows are starting. Do I like wine? No. Tastes bad. All right. At least I don't personally tweet the tweets that I personally hate the most. I'm just putting out some hopefully useful information for some people who find out our show schedule that way. Do I like grilled Brussels sprouts? Yes. Okay. Do I have memories of what it's like to go from 400, 600, 1200? So Solitude, my first rating was, I didn't start playing in tournaments till I was older than Kostya. There's very cute pictures of Kostya at his early tournaments, but I started at age 12, and my first rating was 1200. And I also won like my first 13 tournament games or something like that. But so I don't know exactly what my progression was up to that point, but I do remember what it was like to play chess before I got a rating, when I just played against my brother, or when I went to like a camp and played against some random kid who scholars mated me for an entire day and I couldn't stop the scholars mate. So I do remember like what it was like to be bad at chess, right? I don't remember exactly what the rating progression was like. But like my first 2 chess strategies, one was trying to put every single pawn in a row on the 4th rank, and then trying to move all my pieces to the 3rd rank so they would set up behind the pawns that were on the 4th rank. So basically reset your board, but translated up 2 rows. And my second strategy was making a full like zigzag of all pawns on one color of squares. Those were my first 2 chess strategies I came up with on my own. So there must be a bigger lag than I thought. Pleafers is asking a question I just answered, I think. I mean, one of the more vivid memories is like going to this camp and playing against a kid and getting scholars mated like 12 games in a row. And like every time I got mated, just like again. And I just couldn't figure it out. So it took some work. So I can remember in my head my own development of chess ideas over time, like how I slowly figured out, structure and like squares for pieces and files for rooks and stuff like that. But I don't really remember, what kind of blunders I made in tournaments before I was rated 1200. And by then I was already sort of all right at like basic calculation, right? So it wasn't like Kosia can remember like putting pieces where somebody took them and going like, oh man, but that basically never happened to me in a tournament. Okay. I don't know, Alpha Can. I just already had that perseverance at that point, right? I think in general I had confidence, so I felt like each time I would like set up, I would think this time it's not going to happen. Like I really didn't believe that I could lose and lose and lose, right? I just thought I'm going to fix it. I'm going to win. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to win. I was very confident. And I guess that like high confidence, instead of like shattering in the face of a defeat, just made me think that I could overcome it. I don't know. MP Teb versus Far Eastern. Sounds good. Yeah, I'm going to look at anybody's games, just anybody who's in the April Classical. Tell me what game you want me to look at. All right. So we'll start with it. Pleaf versus OE Raps is your round 3 game. And Cheesy wants their game. Okay. All right. Well, I've got the spreadsheet open, so I should be able to find links mostly in results round 3, right? That'll probably mostly work for us. So if we go to results round 3, I want to find MT Peb. It's right there. Literal last move blunder. Vienna to transpose into King's Gambit declined. Let's put it here, or I don't know, how is this going to work? Grab it like this. PGN. This MT Peb guy played against us in the sub battle against GM Canty today. Amanda was like destroying MT Peb and then hung a rook. It was very tragic. Okay, and next up, Super Llama, you'll have to whisper me a link. Otherwise, you're getting auto blocked. So I got Cheesy in the queue. I'm gonna start here. Nice, very nice start from MT Peb in the opening. Whew! This position's already intense. So there's already bishop takes f7 check on the board here. So you wasted time calculating something silly. No, probably not. Probably not. It's good to start calculating already by this point. Oh, you shared a PGN on Discord? Hang on, where's my Discord? Oh yeah, there it is. Cool, awesome. Oh, when you were trying to see if like your bishop could get away from this knight and this c3 move you hadn't thought of, and so you still had to get traded off. Wings of Dank, the cutoff just passed for signing up for the April Classical. However, the good news for you is that the May Classical starts. The May-June Classical starts next week, and you can sign up for that very soon. Okay? And you're not going to have to wait long, I mean, is the good news. You can whisper me links through Discord or through Twitch. Either will work. No, it's not. It's not silly that you wanted to maximize where it got traded. That's totally normal. That's totally normal. It is Forsooth. Check out. I already put the first smidge of info into that classical command that couchpotato just hit us with. I didn't yet make the sign up for it, but I will in the next day or two probably. Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe for this one, I don't know if I should make a Google form or an Excel. I haven't decided yet. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Forsooth. You know you can take any buys you want. If you only want to play May, you can just play May. You're studying Russian and physics. Okay, fair enough. What rating range do I recommend? Anywhere from 0 to 3,000. This is a Vienna game that transposed into a King's Gambit declined. Yeah. Okay, here's Pleafer's game. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I agree, casual player. This looks quite bad for black. The opening that MT Peb played here is a very, very high quality opening. I'm not sure about leaving knight takes e4 hanging here. I think white should be happy enough with the position they have and just castle here. It happens Far Eastern. Sometimes your opponents play good moves. That's part of chess too. That's not necessarily. I mean, I'm assuming that this thing means something bad, but it's not a bad thing. I can tell you the rating range that we had in this first tournament in April, and I assume we're only going to have more players in an even bigger range in the future. We had a range from 200 to into the 2200s. Let's say 200 to 2250. Okay? So, if you were rated 100 or if you were rated 2400, you would still find good opponents just fine. Bishop takes f7 isn't just legit. It wins the game. Right here. If the king moves, you take the rook. If the king takes, you can move the knight anywhere you like, but I would go for here, here, capture this. Now this knight's hanging. It's probably going to take, bring out the bishop. And yeah, you can see how nice this is for white. I mean, there's no reason to resign as black in a, even if you're playing a master, you don't have to resign, but the position's, more or less overwhelmingly good for white at this point. Really just depends on the skill of the opponent, but I feel like I could probably win this position as white. Against any human, probably. So anyway, it's pretty strong. It's just a good theme to know about if you're going to be facing King's Gambits. This bishop takes f7 is a big deal. In this position here, your rook is actually well placed on f7 defending this, since there's rook, bishop, and knight. So in this position, I would just be looking at different trades you can make in the center, mostly, because white's got a lot of pressure there, but that means they've also left this undefended. I would just be looking at central captures here rather than the rook move. Yeah. Anyway, just a little tip about the opening here. I don't know if I could beat a computer Rango. Yeah. I can't seem to beat computers at anything. I've practiced some really overwhelming advantages against computers and not won. So anyway, let's get more into the game. So h3 comes in. Yeah, and actually here, it was good of you, Far Eastern, to recognize that bishop takes, queen takes was going to look very, 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 very scary for you. and to try something like this was a very nice thing to try. Great instinct there. Now, I mean, White's opening was really good. They've got a lot of latitude to keep an advantage here. Taking is reasonable. Now I would follow with Queen E2, probably, right here for White. Queen E2 looks pretty good. That knight's in a lot of danger here. Okay, White plays G5, Queen D5. That was the best square for your queen. Another great move. How many IMs and GMs are there in Chess Dojo? We've got 3 teachers who run the channel. So Kosti and myself are IMs and Jesse's a GM. We sometimes have other people teach lessons on the channel as well as us, but we're the ones who like put in like lots and lots of hours. But you know, we've got all kinds of guest grandmasters who come in for like an hour or two here or there. So you can get a variety of perspectives and see a variety of great players on here, but I wouldn't, I mean, I don't know. That's my best answer, Wings of Dank. And have I ever played Levy? Not one-on-one. I played like a consultation match against him, basically, like pairs chess, me and John Bartholomew against Levy and Danny Wrench, which was a lot of fun. That's the closest I've come to playing him. Yeah, Queen D5 because you want to like coordinate the rooks, but actually because it's the best square for the queen. You defend this and you defend this. And both of these pieces that the queen's defending actually need protection. So this is great. You also want your queen on a light square versus a dark square. So it's really like the perfect square. It's another very nice move there from you. So White basically pushes this pawn, then decides it's like killing their bishop and sacks it just to reopen their bishop. So that's good news for you, obviously. Yeah, the queen's also in extremely good relation to the knight on f3. It would take it a million moves to bother her. Good point, forsooth. Absolutely. Knight h4, take the piece. Queen g4, leave your piece hanging. Okay, here you should save your piece back to e6 probably. But honestly, any move of your knight, e4, f7, any safe move of the knight would be preferable to leaving it here. And the game's sort of back to equalish. Yeah, excited with the free piece. Gave it back. Yeah, I don't know about the knight trade. The position's tricky, but I would think that best for you is to just steal this guy's pawn. Because it's really, really good for your rook right here. To steal that pawn. That's kind of like the beautiful thing about the way you traded on b6. I know you wanted to trade in an even better way. Welcome, Dripman. I know you know your way around the dojo, but thank you anyway. But anyway, the trade on b6 is actually, it's not so bad the way it went for you, Far Eastern. The nice thing about it really is this rook, but then you have to, use the rook if the opportunity comes up. You're wondering if it's too early. And you were wondering if it was too early to take the pawn on e4 as well. Okay. So let me tell you what a tactic is, Far Eastern. I think you're right at the correct level, perhaps, to learn tactics versus strategy. And there may be a lot of decent players in here who've never thought about it and don't know the distinction either, but this will be very good for you. So strategy is anything that is not time dependent. It's something you'd like to do, and it's not based on, does it take 1 move or 3 moves or 5 moves? Do I do it now or do I do it later? Okay. A tactic is something that's short term. It's an immediate opportunity. And by definition, basically, it's something that won't be their next move if you don't play it now. I mean, your opponent could blunder it again, right? But in theory, a tactic is like a one-time chance that may or may not come again. So with this pawn hanging here, if you do not take it, right, like this move you played here, your opponent is free to play a3. Very nice, Dr. Christmas, easy. Or very nice, Mr. Tartakower. Yeah. So your opponent can play a3 to stop it, right? Just as in the opening, d4 leaves this pawn hanging. I would have taken it right away, by the way. But you thought you should maybe finish development before taking it. Now, if I were white, I would defend this pawn. Well, I wouldn't have played d4, leaving my pawn hanging. It's the problem. But, you know, in this position, it is within white's, you know, rights to play a move like queen d3 and defend the pawn, and now you can't get it anymore, right? Now, they didn't. Again, you have a chance to take on e4, and you didn't. And every time you don't do it, they have a chance to defend the pawn or to, you know, save it in some way, right? So, hey, Posada, I think these players are about 800, 900 in this game here. We'll be looking at a variety of ratings over the course of tonight and some of the other games here. So that's the basic thing of what tactics are. Like, by their nature, if you don't do it, you won't get to do it. So when you say you didn't know if it was too soon, I mean, you may be afraid that if you take it, something bad's going to happen to you, but you should understand that if you don't take it, you don't get the chance again. That's it. So it's not like, should I take it now or in 3 moves? It's like, should I take it now or should I never take it? Does that make sense? That's the way I want you to frame it for yourself. Okay? I want you to frame it as, and maybe that's already how you're thinking about it, but from your language, it sounded like you thought like you'd get another chance to take the pawn on a2 at a more convenient time maybe, or the pawn on e4 in the opening. I got the same feeling, like you thought, oh, maybe I can take it next move, right? So if you don't take it, it's gone. Assume that, right? Now, it may be that there are some positions where you shouldn't grab a pawn because you need to finish developing. That is perfectly reasonable, right? So if we look at the position early on in the opening where white first plays d4, leaving the pawn hanging, you might think, if I take this pawn, something bad is going to happen to my king in the center. I'm worried. I'm not going to take it. But you're doing that knowing that, but that means white's going to have time to defend the pawn and I'm never going to get it. Right? It's fine to say now's not the time to be grabbing a pawn. You just have to understand that you're passing up that opportunity for good against, you know, better and better opposition, which you will face over the course of your chess career. So you need to frame it that way at least. That's good that you're already listening, Pleafers. Forsooth, you're still working on a precise definition for strategy. Oh, I see. Between imminent maneuvers with a concrete resolution, right, and strategy, right. Long-term, you know, changes in position. That's what strategy is, right? So sometimes you doubt the accuracy of your calculation. Yeah. In general, if you doubt the accuracy of your calculation, you should just try to do your calculation. And when you're wrong, learn to improve your calculation. But if you don't try a move that looks good to you, you don't get to like learn really if that move worked or not. So I definitely advise you to, you may not necessarily, like, it's not like trust your calculation, but like go with your calculation, right? So I mean, like, trust it in the sense of go with it, but not like you falsely believe it's always going to be right. But I say, if you've calculated something the best you can, and based on all the information you have at your disposal from your calculation, the move is good, you should play the move and let, you know, and let your opponent and chess show you why not. Okay. As far as like how does this balance like threats versus what's that? Because there's this famous quote about the threat being stronger than the execution or something. How do I balance it with threat versus execution? I mean, basically, if you have a threat and your opponent like just allows it and you don't take it, well, it's no longer really threatening them. I don't know what to say. Like the threat is stronger than the execution is some kind of a vague concept. It may apply sometimes, but not always, as most chess concepts do. But I don't know what to say. If your opponent's pieces are hanging, you should just take them. Like, there's no like, but I'm threatening to take your piece, so be more scared next move. You're just supposed to take your opponent's pieces. There's nothing about threatening to take them that's actually stronger than taking them. All right. Very good, Porf. That is strategy and tactics. Yep. Absolutely recognizable in your example. But I mean, let's say you threaten like checkmate and your opponent makes a weakness on the king side, like g6 or h6 to prevent it, right? If the threat was actually stronger than the execution, I mean, you would say that like forcing a weakness is better than delivering checkmate, which is clearly not true. So. Yeah, so what race to GM is saying is like if you've got like a move on the board like queen b3 that threatens something, you don't want to waste the threat like making a single threat and your opponent defends it, right? Like queen b3 and then attacks f7 and they just defend it. And that's what I talked about in a class Thursday night. So you guys can check out the VOD if you're interested in that. But that's called burning tactical energy by me. Just wasting your tactical energy. And you want to save up your tactical energy till you have enough to like force an advantage. If you guys are interested in that topic, you can check out the VOD from Thursday night. The VOD, the video starts at 8 p.m. and that lesson starts at 9 p.m. So you can look like an hour in to that video if you want to see that. So that's like a 14 to 1600 level lesson. Okay. Race to GM's already seen it and understands it all. Cool. Okay, so let's get further into this game. So we get the piece gets hung, it gets returned. Well, Cheesy, I think they now have a second YouTube channel where just everything gets dumped, but that's probably still hard to find. But I'm not sure how to sift through the like terabyte of videos on my computer and figure out which ones should go into YouTube. Ruffy Lemon, some kind of embed somewhere on the main chess.com website with a bunch of people who aren't actually looking. In terms of true viewers, I have no idea how many we have. I just have no way to know anymore, but probably just our normal number, whatever that is. Okay, so here, and yeah. The problem with knight f5 or g5, I mean, is that basically we should be taking this pawn from the opponent. Okay, so this trade happens. d5 is problematic as well. That's a nice move from white, in my opinion. Taking up some more of the center. That's a good move as well. This move is not so good because you can take it and now you get this pawn, and that just sort of... Basically what this does is it trades this pawn for this pawn. Not a very good trade. And also it leaves this pawn hanging. So d6, not so good. This is good. This is good. Oh, man, now you're up all the pawns suddenly. Okay, so now you're 2 pawns up and winning. Your question was if you had a way to get something better than this 2 pawn up endgame, but I mean, here you're just taking the pawns that are being served. I don't think you can do better than that. I mean, other than, as I said, grabbing the a2 pawn earlier, but now your opponent's given you the a2 pawn plus the e5 pawn. So, yay. And yeah, you didn't have anything better than this. Okay, you decentralize here. Generally speaking, you want your queen as close to the center as possible in this situation. So like f6 and c5 would be the main squares I would consider here for black. Okay. Right, see now you're off to the side. Your opponent can play moves like rook e7, which hurts. So this would be like the likely follow-up. And what's your defense? Looks like this just wins the game in one move. I don't see how your not centralized queen can get to f7. Oh! Raise to GM, thanks. Queen b6. Very nice. Thank you. That saves you. Very good. Okay. In any case, if your queen were on c5 instead of a5, white couldn't play queen d4, and they couldn't play rook e7, and they couldn't play queen d5. Okay, if we want to show that like putting in a random threat doesn't help, we could play queen c5 check, getting the king off of a vulnerable diagonal, then put the queen off sides for no reason. And now, if the game continues with queen d4, b5 defending this, now this move is winning for white. The checkmate's threatened. You don't have any checks to like squirrel out of it anymore. Then this comes in. This is done, and the queen can't get back. And she's even burned her check energy to be able to come over. So here it would be completely lost. I understand Far Eastern, but you got to keep your queen centralized. That's why I'm telling you this. You got to keep your queen centralized while trying to do that same plan. Right? Look at the prime real estate that you're giving up to the white pieces. Something terrible is very likely to happen. And apparently in this position here, where for a second I thought queen d5 would win, apparently you have a save involving bringing your queen back like this, right? But, you know, save as it may be, you'll notice that even here, white could trade, and now you don't have those 2 pawns to queen on the queen side, right? Because what was happening in the center was more important than what you were doing off on the side, and so you have to rush back to cover it. You're lucky to even have a tactic to not lose, but certainly your advantage gets messed up by this, right? So the offside queen is not the way to do it. Basically, centralization of the queen is super important in endgames. So what you need to do is queen c5 check, king h1, and then play a move like b5 or whatever, right? And you're preventing queen d5, queen d4, and rook e7. Look at that. So now white just kind of stuck here with nothing to do while you go for this plan. Yeah, 2 open central files for their major pieces. And a queen and rook are, on their own, a sufficient force to set up checkmates. So you can't leave them with free reign over the board, right? You have a second plan here other than pushing b5, b4, and that's pushing f4, f3. It's also a very, very good plan. And that could be done with the queen on f6 or c5, but it looks like this. And the point is you just want to play f3 and trade this pawn, because look how weak white's king will be, right? And it's making your rook active, your queen active. This king is going to be in huge danger in a very short time, from what I can see here, right? So it's very, very much about the activity of the queen and rook. If you ever get like queen and rook kind of end games, queen and rook versus queen and rook strangely straddles the space between middle games and end games. It's always called in books an end game, a queen and rook end game. But end games are characterized by two things compared to middle games. Number one, a general ease of queening pawns, or basically like the fact that it's plausible, not like easy, that it's plausible to queen a pawn is one of the two characteristics of an endgame. And so in endgames, you'll see pawns advance down the board and not just be surrounded by the enemy's pieces and captured, but actually threatened to queen. And the second thing is that endgames are characterized by a sufficient safety for the king to join the battle. Now, queen and rook versus queen and rook meets the first criteria. You can create a pass pawn, you can push it down the board, you can absolutely support it, and that can decide the game. But queen and rook is enough material that a king cannot come out and fight. And a large percentage of queen and rook endgames are actually decided by somebody getting checkmated. Here's another plan for you in this position, by the way. I'll just play a random move for white here, and I'll show you an idea for black. Look at that. We're just threatening checkmate in one. What a shocker. What a shocker. So people may sometimes call this a major piece endgame instead of just calling it an endgame, or a major piece ending. Sure. So Jim's Chess Channel, which I don't know what that is. Force below 14. That doesn't sound so. 6 minutes to an hour and 20. Yeah, so your opponent played super fast, and your time is getting to be a bit low to play this. That's a bit difficult, yeah, to play this with 6 minutes. But generally speaking, it's better that you used an hour and a half than that you used 10 or 15 minutes. I would probably want to have like 10 minutes left on my clock at this point, maybe even 15, but it's reasonably fine. There's a typo? Will be help. Oh, will be held. It's funny you said that and you typoed mega to tell me about it. I was looking for me having spelled mega rapid as MRGA rapid, and I was like, I don't see it. Okay, let me fix it now. Real quick. Thank you for your help on my typo of help. All right. Okay, so this is really the big lesson from this endgame, is that you decentralize the queen, and that made it really, really risky here. You see, like, your opponent being centralized is even making it harder for you to play b4 and advance your queenside plan, right? I mean, everything is harder this way. Of course I do, Chris Mac. We'll see if I get to it. So I have a few suggestions already. Okay, your queen finally sees the board again, and this king should be checkmated in a moment. Yes, checkmate him. No. It's much faster to checkmate him than to queen. All right, I give you this as a puzzle, Far Eastern. Black to play. Nobody else say the answer right now. Nobody else answer it. It's a Far Eastern special. Far Eastern, you can take a minute. Try and find the best move for yourself here. CloudSat, carrots are better raw in general, but there's all kinds of good things you can do with them cooked too. You can see it, Far Eastern. Don't say you can't see it. Okay, what do you expect to happen after Queen E1? Yeah. I mean, carrots are just good, CloudSat. But if you're going to cook them, it has to be in some kind of like a dish. If you just like boil them randomly to make your perfectly good raw carrot like softer, that's pretty lame. Okay. Right. King H3, King H2. Do you see any potential follow-up? Yeah, caramelize is not a good way to go. Oh, are you CloudSat? That sounds fun. Okay, so if the king goes to h2, you can play rook f2 and you're getting close to checkmate. You're absolutely right on that, Far Eastern. It's going to come down to a situation where maybe white could like interpose the queen and like hang their queen to stop checkmate, but basically you have enough of a potential for checkmate. But if white goes to h3, you don't really have a plan for what to do. Grilled Brussels sprouts and raw carrots. Nice. All right, I'll make one extra move for you here and see what you can come up with here. Well, Porf, Ruffy Lemon may have exquisite taste, but we don't know if lemons or pineapples are male or female or non-binary. Might just be a pineapple of exquisite taste. Okay, you're not seeing anything further here, Far Eastern. And MT Peb was also afraid of the pawns getting pushed. Oh man. The real thing here is once a king has no pawn cover, you should know that you can checkmate it. You should know that you can checkmate it, Far Eastern and MT Peb. Both of you should be aware. When a king's got no pawn cover, it can be mated. So all you have to do as Far Eastern is like just start saying checks. Honestly. Like the opposite of how to checkmate with king and queen against king, where like you have to box them in, not play like 50 pointless checks in a row. But in this position, you just need to start playing checks. You can calculate them a little bit if you've got some time and you want to, but just keep playing checks and you will definitely win here somehow. Yeah, queen and rook versus queen and rook, there's no way they're going to be able to block mate, especially with their rook off like somewhere random here. If their rook were like on g2 or something, maybe you wouldn't have an obvious checkmate, but they would have to trade their queen and rook for your queen and rook to stop checkmate, and then you could win very easily. So there's no scenario here where you shouldn't just go after their king. So we've got check here, and you need another move here. So just try some checks. Let's just see what happens. Hello, Alexander Lenderman. Are you really Alexander Lenderman? Oh no, there's two of you now. Will the real Alexander Lenderman please stand up? No problem, Porp. No problem. Yeah, they're definitely all fake. All right. If one of you is the real Alexander Lenderman, how old were you the first time you played chess with me? Simple question, right? '78. You're not 78 yet. Okay. I don't know if it's like a mate in 4 or 5, Super Llama. I just want Far Eastern to try out some checks and see what happens. It'll be educational for him. Okay. Alexander Spammermans, could you guys please just stop talking so that I can see what Far Eastern has to say? Thank you. All right, so you were saying queen c3 in this position, right, Far Eastern? King h4. King goes to h4, yeah. Okay, so one thing I can tell you is you don't really want to be going like further away. You want to help your rook get control of a square to come in on at some point, right? You'll need both pieces. So if you could get closer, somewhere where your rook would be able to come in would be good. So queen e3 could make sense. Queen h1, trying to get control of f3. Maybe queen f1, helping the rook come in on f3 or f4 or f2. Yeah, that could be good too. Right? So try to get somewhere like close so that you're helping your rook get access to one of these squares. The queen alone could basically just check back and forth, right? At some point, the queen will need to be able to bring the rook in. Although, I mean, even a queen trade's enough to easily win this position, right? So there is that. Okay. So I'll give you some examples. You'll see that like all of these work basically, right? Check. If the queen drops back, rook f3. If the king comes up, rook f4. If the king comes down anywhere, rook f2. Right? And then queen e1. Okay, so we have check here, check here, and here you were saying, yeah, you've got either this rook f4 move, or check here, check, bringing the rook down. From the starting position, here, where we played queen e1, it's even faster to play queen f2 right away, taking away sort of maximum squares for the king, and also because you're on the f file with the rook, it allows your rook to come down to f4, f3. This is the fastest way to decide the king, to decide the game. But I just wanted to, like, you know, let you play queen e1 because it also wins, right? And you know what else also wins? Queen e3, right? Like any move like coming towards the king with your queen and giving checks, you'll eventually be able to play rook f4, f3, or f2, and that'll be the end. As soon as the rook moves, that's it. So it's not really more like force a rook for queen trade. Yeah, Jiang Nubang, in a position like this, white can usually sack their queen for a rook to avoid an immediate checkmate, but that's completely over, right? Okay. Yeah, so you see the general approach here. Far Eastern is like to get the pieces active, to get them all involved in what's going on here. All right. Maybe we're missing something? Not a defense, that's for sure. There's no defense. Right, you could have been slightly panicking. But I'm still just trying to give you some instincts. One instinct is we want to go for this king. The other instinct is we will need to get the rook access to one of these squares somehow. With that knowledge, you can then forcibly find the answer. You can also have the confidence to look for the answer with any minutes you need out of your last 6 minutes. There was a line like queen e1, king h2, queen e2, king h4, rook f4, and then wouldn't rook b7? No. Because the white queen will be pinned, it won't be able to join the attack in one of those positions. Like here's an example of what you're asking, I think, race to GM. Like, isn't there check? But see, this queen is already dead. She's still technically on the board, but she can't come checkmate because you'll see it won't let her. And so, you know, white can give some checks, but it doesn't matter. Black king's perfectly safe. It can even come here, right? No queen d7, etc. Yeah, the rook will never be able to give a perpetual all on its own either. The king can eventually cover the squares the rook needs, and alternatively, the king could have run around and hid behind the c-pawn or whatever. Interesting, Sifel. Interesting. Why are you guys deleting his message? That's fine. That's fine. I don't mind that at all. It was just like a little attempt at a basic chess rhyme. I've thought of similar things about other people. Thanks, JB. Yeah, that's no problem. I've written almost the same rhyme, but just, you know, switching the names around. That guy's right at my level. It would be something like D to the P to the R-U-E, double S, yes, that's D Pruess, repping once again for the game that's best. You know, here on stream to play some chess. Don't worry. It's fine, JB. The Lendermans like put you in that the Lendermans put you in that mode. Anyway. So, the c-pawn moves. You can still checkmate at some point if you want to. Going for the queen's not so bad. It's fine, Sifl 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that it's as bad as my own, as the things that come to my own mind. So I would say it's probably about like 1200 rated, but I'm not even qualified to rate that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's, as I said already, it's basically on my level. That's the kind of stuff I think of. So, yeah. I didn't even know that I had haters, though, so thank you for letting me know that. I just thought that somebody was having fun. And who is Alexander Lenderman? He's an American grandmaster. One of the best. One of the best. Good enough to play in the U.S. championships when it's like an invitational of like 10 players, basically. Yeah, I mean, he's rated over 2,600 FIDE, as high as 2,650. You know, Hess was just mentioned in this Sifl cipher, and Hess, Lenderman, and Shankland were like a trio who came up at the same time, approximately, reached GM about the same time. So that's sort of like the generation that Lenderman is for us. Yeah. Hey, Marion. Howdy. Yeah, Lenderman is a nice guy. Your friend doesn't like me, Sifl? You got to tell me why. You got to tell me why. I'd love to know what was unlikable about me to your friend. But yeah, and I did actually play Lenderman when he was young. Not to, you know, give the fake Lendermans more ammo for their imposter move, but I have played Lenderman. All right, so the C pawn's coming down. Now we get a series of checks. Oh, the rook comes back out. Oh no. Yeah, Lenderman has been a good sort of like assistant, like coach or analyst or whatever for the U.S. Olympiad team a couple times. Pancake Gremlin, I believe that's accurate. Yeah. Charlie has a moment similar to yours, Far Eastern, apparently missing a mate in one yesterday for him, today for us in the tournament. Ouch. This was brutal. Why would Maya do puzzles with me instead of with Kostya, guys? That doesn't really make any sense. Press F for the rook. Ouch. Well, Far Eastern, what can I say? This game here definitely would have gone differently if you sort of just basically had the confidence and the knowledge that a king like this can get checkmated, right? If you just knew you could checkmate that king, you would have been looking for it. You could have found it at some point, right? You could have traded the queens. You don't know if you had better. Yeah, you've got better. You can checkmate the king, right? I gave you the confidence for that, right? That sounds fun, Seaman, about a dog. Here's the stream that is possible, folks, and you can see it below me on this follower bar down here, right? If we hit 15,000 followers by May 31st at midnight, Maya and Chloe will appear together on stream to play Hand and Brain with Kostya and I. So that is what it would take to get Chloe on stream. She's not particularly desirous of any attention or coming on stream. But that's what it would be to get Chloe on stream. Twos are weird, says Porp. The best advice for minimizing hanging pieces is to play games, Pancake Gremlin. Also to do tactics, also to slow down. Was this a time trouble blunder? Was there time to spot Queen F7? Well, raise 2 GM. I mean, so Far Eastern had at least 30 seconds per move. We know Far Eastern was under 5 minutes at this point, probably. So basically, like blitzing. So, yeah, I mean, 30 seconds is enough, maybe, to spot Queen F7. But Far Eastern was in sort of like a nervous, panicky kind of mode at this point. So, you know, blunders can come out at that point. If we can't get 10K followers, we have 10K followers. And since she doesn't have social media, she doesn't have DMs. Okay. Yeah, there's a 30-second increment helping out here. So anyway, if we're confident that this king is open enough that we should be able to checkmate this king, and we see that Rook F7 loses to Queen F7, anyone want to hazard a guess what the right move would be for black here? There were a lot of really strong points in this game, as Raise 2 GM says. White's opening was really strong. Black played some really good moves as soon as they got in trouble, like Queen D5 was a very nice move. D5 was a really, really strong move. When White played H3 attacking the bishop, that was maybe the starest move of them all for Black, right? Recognizing that the situation's getting critical and looking for a move other than just, you know, trading or running away, that's huge. That was super impressive. But to get back to this position here, what should Black do? Queen H5 and Queen F5 are okay, but then what's next? Kostia's opinion is that bullet is not even chess. It's just a random different thing that you can do if you like it. But you shouldn't think it has anything to do with playing chess. Okay, CloudSat suggests a pretty reasonable answer here, right? If you want to checkmate the king and Rook F7 doesn't work, play Queen check, securing F7 for your rook. The king will move wherever it wants to move. Doesn't matter. It's going to move somewhere. And CloudSat says you can then get your rook out and you will surely have checkmate, which is 100% correct. The first move that popped into my mind here was Rook E7. Since you can't go to F7, bring the rook out somewhere else. And I know that there's a mating pattern that looks like this. So you're threatening, you know, checkmate in 2 or 3 moves. They can't take your c-pawn. If they try and play some defensive move, you could always like queen, and they'll probably have to take it and get mated. So I think Rook E7 is a very, very clean win here. But Queen F5 with the idea of Rook F7 is, I guarantee it also works. I haven't calculated it because it's not what I looked at, but I guarantee that it just mates. You didn't know this one, Far Eastern? The rook, queen, rook thing? Like a protected rook roller on steroids. Yeah, rook c7 is the best defense, MT-Peb, instead of allowing this checkmate. And it's still going to lose. Black will give some check with the queen. And then win. Something like... check here or something. Actually, if the king runs towards like a light square here, is there going to be a win for sure? Queen e3. Yeah, there it is. Thanks, Race to GM. Helping me out again. This one will finish things off. Very nice. Okay, so what have we learned here, Far Eastern? Number one, king and queen endgames are determined by checkmate a very high percentage of the time. Therefore, keep those pieces centralized and active in the endgame. And when you have a chance to start checking the opponent's king, go for it, because you're probably going to mate them. Don't worry about queening the pawn. Alrighty. So, let's get another game in here. Cheesy had spoken up early on, so I'm going to try and find Cheesy's game from this round. Cheesy against Deep Lagrange. Hang on, let me just save the game that we have here already. Man, my Postmortem game file is absolutely out of control. A couple, Chris. Yeah. I teach a few private lessons. I prefer to teach semi-private lessons. 2 to 4 student little groups. I think your bishop's better than the bishop you're trying to trade off. probably a winning move here. No, I'm not really looking to advertise the lessons because I'm already deluged. Already deluged with requests. This move probably wins for you, Cheesy. I suspect. Because if knight takes, you want to play this move, right? And if bishop b6, you defend like here. I guess I didn't finish calculating like knight d2, but you'd have rook takes knight, bishop takes, bishop takes, right? And now if knight d2, you've got queen check, and then save the piece. Oh, nice, JB. There's a whole channel of chess coaches. Yeah, it looks like this wins for black. It's funny, bishop g4, which I don't like, seems to win the game in one move. Seems like you're winning anyway. Now the knights are tied up. This is worrisome. Here it makes sense to just take the knight on b3, since otherwise it can get away. It's a long, complicated game, huh? Whoa. And now you're avoiding... Now white's trying to trade rooks down a pawn, and you're trying to avoid a rook trade up a pawn. Cannot understand. In order to then send the knight to that weird square. Okay. Okay. This position should be winning. F5's correct. You don't need G5 yet, though, I think. Just bring up your king. You're welcome, Dr. Chainsaw. Glad to hear that you're going up and up. Okay, so what you need to do next here... I'm just calculating knight f4. Knight f4, he would probably trade his bishop for your knight, right? Because g2 and h3 are attacked. I don't see how to win the endgame after knight f4, bishop f4. Okay, so not knight f4. Let's get back to normal moves then. The normal thing you would do in a position like this is you would check the white king so that your king can make progress. So the normal maneuver would be knight c7 to e6. Now bishop needs to keep this square covered because check will bring your knight here as well. So the bishop has to stay on this diagonal, not this one. So you'll see something like bishop c1, knight check, king here, and now king here. And then here. Now you're well on your path to winning this endgame. That's like the simple approach, so to speak, but I think it just does it, right? Just does it for you. I don't see anything useful white can do here to stop this and this. They could try to keep your king away from e5 with this, but then they allow knight f4, right? So knight check here, knight f4. White can mess around with bishop g7, but, you know, it's going to be winning for you. You're saying here wings of dank to play g3, but then black takes this pawn. Once these pawns are in this configuration, if you can ever land the knight on f4, that's sort of like a winning idea, because if one moves, the other dies. Oh, g3 earlier to stop this. Oh. Okay, so when I played knight c7, though, the thing was I was threatening knight e6. If you play g3, the real threat here was just to bring the king up, because the king wins. Right? So I only played knight f4 because I played bishop c3 to stop king e5. There wasn't time to do both of these things for white, right? If this king ever gets forward, that's just winning. If this king comes this way to stop king e4, one thing you can do is you can always readjust your king here, then check this king again, and it'll have to give you a new square. The same thing that you just saw me do with knight e6, right? Maybe we could use this as a puzzle for all of you, right? So let's say we advance one space from d6 to d5 with that knight c7 to e6 maneuver, and now we've got this position, and our opponent plays here. How would you guys like to play this? Maybe cheesy, you get priority. You can just toss out some moves for black. Try and suggest something pretty quick. Just what would you like to do? Okay. Shall I assume h5 for you to speed things up? Okay. So I'm sitting here. What's the basic maneuver to win here as black? And you guys can tell me more than one move at a time. I mean, you can tell me where you're headed. Knight f8 or knight d8? Yes, why? Where are you going? I'm not looking for knight g7 to f5, no. Then white defends the pawn on h4 with their bishop. That freezes the opponent. But to actually win the game, Chris and Cheesy are correct. The goal is just to check this king with your knight. And then you keep coming up the board, right? Same thing that we just did to get from d6 to d5. Right? So just find a route to get to e5. It really doesn't matter much what you do. Here, 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 let's say, right? Actually, this was pretty good. Slows this down. Knight g7 to f5. The bishop could go to f2 instead of f4, Eric. But even if the bishop goes to f4 and you play h4, it's not making the progress that you want to, actually. You don't want to just trade off all the pawns. You want to advance the king forward. Okay, so here, it's a little bit annoying that the knight's now hanging in this position, isn't it? I need to check him from somewhere else. I suppose you could now win with h4 and then just push and push and push. Happens to win here. Felt a little gimmicky, but it does win. So I guess we can't ignore it. Well, black's queening several moves before white. I'm not sure what's complicated. Next move is this, and then the next move is that. If the bishop goes to d4, we'll trade it, or just take it, so that we can queen. Any king and pawn ending down a pawn is lost. That's what's going on, Great Wolf, basically, with almost no exceptions. Here, one thing you could do as black is you could go to g5, push h4, trade pawns, and then just walk your king over to the b pawn. Your opponent will have to take the g pawn with their king, and then you'll take both of these pawns. That's one way. Another move that happens to win here is f4. But it's more thematic to just slowly push your king forward. Okay, so let's see how the game goes. So you come up, play f5. That's fine so far. Maneuver the knight. We'll go very defensive on this pawn, huh? Now I'm not sure how you're going to win with your knight stuck on h7. Oh, knight e6. Tricky. Why not take this pawn here? Because bishop b4. Okay. Wow. Tricky. Trickery do. Okay. Yeah, I see what's happening. Oh, F4. No, you can't trade it. Oh, because you weren't... Because this pawn, you were still busy defending it. So you were trying to do this to get rid of that problem and then go take this. I'm wondering if there's still any way to win this endgame. I'm sort of doubting it, but I could imagine if I were playing this game as white with little time, I would still be worried. Even though I can't really think of like a winning idea for black. As white, I'd be worried that something's going to go wrong. If we go f3, f2, like Chris is probably wanting to do. Actually, maybe we could get the king to e3 first before we go f3, f2. So here's the thought. Like if we go here, this comes up and we can't get the king to defend the pawn, so we can't maneuver the knight. So what if, Chris, we tried check and then moving the king up? Now my goal is like the pawn can come here, my king can defend it, and then the knight can maneuver for like an attempted checkmate. Indeed, Desert Pagel. I guess this bishop should get further away. The question is, can black engineer any kind of maneuver here without allowing just bishop takes pawn? And I don't see it. I don't see it. As long as this bishop keeps its eye on f2, we can't really do any knight maneuver to finish the game. I don't think it mattered too much which pawn you took here, Cheesy. Like a single F or G pawn should still be a draw here, either one. I think the problem is you allowed first the H pawn trade, then the B pawn trade with this tricky B5 move, and then you were starting to get really low on material to try and still win the game with here. You mentioned here knight c5 to e4 might be a maneuver to keep some winning chances, and I agree. That looks like it keeps good winning chances. Right? It's this f4 move that seems to give it away. Yeah, I mean overall this endgame should be completely overwhelming. I'm much more confused by some of the play in the middle game, like yeah, this was a very strong move, which maybe white missed, and now you've got such a good game for black after that. But this was surprising to me. I would have expected it to just develop here, since white's bishop is looking sort of sorry. Just simple. Bishop e6. But then, once you play bishop g4, I guess if takes, you have this move. And your opponent's move a5 seemed to be losing. So maybe bishop g4 was stronger than I realized when I first saw it. They're discussing move 56. Yeah, this is a draw. That is true. That's a dead draw. So bishop g4, takes. You want to confirm this calculation. Bishop e2, there's either bishop b6 or knight e2. Knight e2, queen c2. Hanging, queen trade, hanging. Bishop b6, queen c4 defending. So there's knight, takes. Any other big moves here for white? Did you look at this move at all, Cheesy? Like, did you calculate bishop takes e2 here? And if so, like, what did you see? What did you think of what would happen? Good morning, Sebrahen and Stefano. Pagel thought bishop e2 won a pawn. Chris asks if rook a4 might be a move. That's interesting. Oh, but the knight's defended, right? So this bishop can just move away, I think. Oh, after queen c4. Oh, thanks, Chris. Let me see. So bishop e2. Bishop b6. Queen c4. Here you're saying maybe rook a4, Chris? At this point it's defended though, so black can save the rook, right? I don't think white's going to have a tactic that covers this. Okay, so this is attacked but defended. So this needs to go somewhere. Okay, you were expecting him to trade, and when he didn't trade, you just thought he would. You didn't calculate bishop takes e2 for yourself? Well, now it's black's move, Desert. Chris just tried rook a4 for you. Okay, let me think. Is knight d2 a problem if I move the rook away? Yeah, possibly. Oh, bishop e2, bishop d8. Yeah, I looked at that first. Maybe just taking on e4, Cheesy. Nice idea. That stops knight d2. Do we have enough things defended, though? Like here, takes, here, takes, here, c3, for example. How does black make that work? That position, Desert Pagel, yeah. I thought black has two pieces against a rook and should be winning. All right, good night, JB. Sorry I didn't get to your game yet. Why would I sack the exchange? Yeah, I don't know, Cheesy. I thought you were... somebody suggested knight takes e4 here. Somebody suggested knight takes e4. You. That's why I tried it. Yeah, there was time to save the rook here. You told me to play knight e4. All right. So, I mean, one thing we could do is we could just move this bishop somewhere safe, right? And does this hurt us? Takes, takes knight a2. Is there some? Knight a2, there's knight a2. And black wins. Knight d2 here. There's queen check anywhere. Yeah, there's kind of a Q Super Llama. Just kind of in the order that people gave me their games. I think the JB was next, but just left. And after that, I have Pleaf versus Owie. And Egon Cherik against Oso Plays Chess, which I think is yours. Just looks like black's winning. Yeah, I think it's just winning for black to take on e2 cheesy. So if you didn't look at bishop takes e2 at all here, if you didn't calculate it at all during the game, you should have. You should have. This is like a tactical moment where, you know, you've got tactics, they've got tactics, and so it calls for calculation. You got to see what happens if you play bishop e2. You have to look at it. In fact, I mean, before playing bishop g4, you should have some idea of, you know, if they don't take, what do you do? Oh, in the knight e4 line? In the knight e4 line, I traded your knight first before I took the rook. In the line I was testing out, I think. In the rook a4 line, knight e4, I played this for white. So there wouldn't be a knight to do f2 stuff. And then after here, oh, maybe here, though, there's rook d1. I wasn't being very careful, was I? I had gone like this. Right, and now bishop d8. There's clearly not bishop c5 anymore. Okay, if bishop d8 here, does bishop c5 win? Is a good question. King stuck. Limited possible moves, something like this, something like this, something like this, something like that, and black wins. So yeah, that's a winning solution for black here. In this position here, if rook a4, we've now basically seen knight takes e4 winning. Just absolutely leaving white with nothing to do. I don't know, Stefano. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes me as I get tired and so forth. You would plan in this position to just answer with knight d5 if rook d8 came. So you'd seen this good move coming and had a planned answer. I will say that even if you'd calculated the number of like attackers and defenders correctly, and you know the rook was in front of your queen or something, and black couldn't take this, there's this move at the end for black as well, which is going to be no bueno for you either, with this knight hanging. Maybe it's complicated with d6 though. There may be an absolutely insane idea for white here of this. Actually, we don't even need an insane idea. White could take like this, hitting the knight, and then after black takes this, take here. On rook d here, 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 check, here, here. And black can never untangle. This bishop comes here, so the king can never get that square. But the queen hanging thing is pretty exciting. Because there's back rank mate here. Check. Here. There's no bishop moves because of this. Okay, there's here. Rook d8, and then bishop anywhere spoils it. Okay, so correct is to recapture with the bishop here, and white comes out decently thanks to this d6 move. Sounds like you guys just needed to calculate a little bit more some of these tactics in this phase here. I mean, bishop takes bishop. I mean, I have to think that Deep Lagrange, before playing a5, looked at bishop takes bishop from cheesy or not. I mean, you've got these pieces looking at each other. If you're not calculating bishop takes bishop, knight takes bishop, and bishop takes bishop, knight takes bishop, then what moves are you looking at? Once pieces are attacking each other, it's like calculation time. And it's hard for me to guess what you'd be looking at other than these moves. I mean, this knight is defending e4. These two pieces are attacking c2. So a simple recapture from white is like obviously hanging things. Okay, so you, before playing bishop g4, you thought about him taking on g4, which is good. You took into account what your opponent might do, but what were you planning to do next if your opponent did nothing, right? If they played king h1 or something. Was your bishop g4 move, was it threatening anything? Was it supposed to do anything for you? A lot of people's plans are like, I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this, and they don't even keep their opponent's moves in consideration at all. But you played this move without even having a plan of what you would do next if the other guy ignored you, huh? It's like the opposite of everybody else. You're like, I'll do this, and he'll play this response. Anyway, I would say, to me, the most relevant point from this game is that you guys just need to calculate a little bit more in this key moment at this point in the game. I don't know where exactly you guys spent your time, and I don't know whether or not you recognized that this moment here was going to be really decisive for who wins or loses the game. But do note that, I mean, even though you're like missing knockout moves, this is the phase of the game where black won a pawn, and eventually, I guess black didn't win the endgame, but they did eventually play an endgame with an extra pawn, and could have won. The endgame was winning because of that extra pawn. So this phase of the game was like very nearly decisive, even though you're missing the move to really put the opponent away. You did think about it now. Okay. Well, once you do, you'll see that this is like minus a million. So, I mean, for each of you, I think it's the same thing, because you obviously each miscalculated the same moment in the game, right? White allowed what I would call an easy win for black, and black didn't play it. Didn't even consider it during the game, I think. Despite it being like the #1 candidate move to look at. The lesson is not necessarily to change your opening. I mean, in any opening, you could miscalculate and lose the game. Or not calculate and, lose or draw a game based on that. I think you guys just needed to realize what a critical moment this was and put in a little bit more work on your calculations. Just try and make them a little bit deeper and more accurate. I mean, in Cheesy's case, it would be to even look at this, so it's not just deeper. But for Deep Lagrange, you probably looked at bishop takes e2 and you didn't really have an adequate plan in mind. So presumably better would have been to trade or play bishop f1, but not to just... You played a5 thinking that bishop e2, bishop b6 would work for you, I assume. You realized bishop e2 was a problem. You were trying to use bishop b6 to dodge it. And so that's why for you, I say you just didn't calculate quite deep enough on that idea to make sure it worked, because it didn't quite work. Okay, and you played the FE5 move really quickly, which you think is ridiculous. It's rare to take on E5 in these positions. Much more common to move the knight. But whatever decision goes into it, basically, if you've got a lot of experience, you could maybe play this move quickly off of your experience. If you don't have a lot of experience, then you have to put in the time. So it kind of depends a little bit. Yeah. And so I wonder if either of you had the sense that that was sort of like potentially a decisive moment when black played bishop g4 and white goes for a5. I wonder if either of you had a sense like the next move might decide who wins or loses this game. If you didn't, I would suggest, trying to work on that instinct or some kind of approach that lets you know when you're in a critical moment, because you were. Okay, you did spend time on this. Okay. So recognizing that it was pretty important, but somehow not really calculating very deeply. Okay, you guys spent your time here. That's good. That's good. So you just need to go deeper. You need to look at all the captures. Yeah, I mean, this is beyond what Eric's saying. I mean, changes of pawn structure or exchanges of pieces are like strategically critical. But sometimes, you just have the experience to make those decisions. And those decisions may have a big effect on the game, but not like capture. I mean, I could make a mistake about what pawn structure to play or which piece to trade off, and it's not going to lose the game as just directly cold as this. Like this, if black plays it, there's just no coming back, right? Like it's just completely over at their level. If if I say that, black's light squared bishop was a bit better than white's and, this is like a bad strategic choice to trade it, it should just go here. I mean, that doesn't necessarily win or lose the game in the same way. So this is a different degree of critical. This is like recognizing there's enough tactical elements going on that tactics are available, that it's calculation critical. Okay. So let's grab another game. Pleef, are you around? It's between Pleef and Oso here. Right. He might cheesy, but we calculated that too. Bishop takes, bishop b6, queen c4. Right? We spent a while calculating this. It didn't work out for white. They could play knight d2 to kick the queen off here, but then you just trade your rook for it as well. And now you've got two pieces against a rook, right? Or they could go bishop takes d8 here, then try and chase the queen, but now the queen's got a new square. Otherwise, black's just got two pieces against the rook and wins. Okay. No Pleef. Oso, you around? Metabolic error. Do I ever do Puzzle Rush? Rarely, but I've done it a few times. Oso Pleef. Pleaf Oso chest. Yeah, I've done that once or twice, Great Wolf. Yeah. Yeah, Desert Pagel. You're getting there. You know, that really comes into play at around like 1800 level as being really, really critical. But this is an example of something that that would be, this key moment from the game that I picked is something that would be helped by that exercise. Exactly. Yeah, you probably looked in the wrong place, Cheesy. That's logical. I mean, you don't yet know how to really analyze a game. You probably looked at a lot of other things. Okay. For Sooth, it looks like the next couple games left. Yeah, Bell's a sub. I do continuously know what each piece's responsibility is. Tigro, I'm about 2,400. And it's not. We put the IM title in the template, like here next to my name, but not trying to like lead with titles and ratings and things. Hey, Dor. Cheesy Driver. Your main question is 47 F4. Is it a draw? Yeah. That's my opinion. I mean, I could spend like, 10 minutes confirming it, but that was my impression when I first looked at it. Still my impression now. I think your last chance would probably be to like reposition the knight here at this point. You can still torture white pretty... I don't know. It's a toss-up to me, win or draw at that point. But the two pawn trades that have happened have dropped your winning chances from like 100% to like 60% maybe. That's what you wanted to know most? Okay. Yeah, if the end game's really interesting to you, that's my answer. All right, so what game should I look at next? Maybe like Clark against Mip or Falk? Also against Deep Lagrange? How do I have two different games against Deep Lagrange the same week? You're welcome, Cheesy. I mean, I'm sure you knew that, like, with each pawn trade, your odds of winning were decreasing. I'm sure that's not, like, a surprise to you. You just want to know, like, at what point is it no longer winnable. Hopefully that method I showed you of just trying to advance your king up the board is useful. Okay, I'll go with Falk against Lagrange for the next and possibly last game that we do today. Desert Pagel, the endgame with the knight versus bishop at the beginning with an extra pawn for black, knight on d5, pawn on f5, king centralizing is an easy win, yeah. Like, for me, I could win it in my sleep, more or less. I would only need, like, you know, a couple seconds per move. If that's what you... I think that kind of answers it for you, right? Like, I don't need a 10-minute think to figure out a plan. I just need a couple seconds per move to sort of, like, you know, double check one or two little things and make progress. I mean, it'd be nice to have a minute on my clock to calculate one key variation at some point, but I basically don't need any time to win it. That can be that's an overwhelming conclusion to make, and I don't want people fretting about everything at once in that way. So I like to point out what I think is most important. There's nothing wrong with how you played that endgame, right, Desert Pagel? That's a wrong conclusion from what I've said, because you just drew an endgame that was losing. So that was fine. I think that what's salient is you made a miscalculation on fe5 and then a second miscalculation on a5, like 2 or 3 moves later. That's what I would focus on, right? Is improving your calculation around those key moves in the early middle game. Because, I mean, against a master, you could be losing that game in 20 moves. And even against a player of, you know, 1600, 1700 level rating, you could be putting yourself in like a pretty severe hole that early in the game. I mean, like, you never really had a chance to win the game, right? Because of those 2 moves. All right. Tiagro, I coach. Where can I find my rates? They're not really published anywhere. People just ask, and then I tell them. It's a 1-hour lesson is 2 times whatever your hourly rate is, because on average I spend an hour preparing and then an hour teaching the lesson. You want to get to 2,000 in Blitz rating or 2,000 in like OTB? 2,000 in Blitz rating, 350 rating points. I mean, it depends on the person, but on average, that's going to take you probably like 2 years. Oh, Alf Books, when you annotate your games, you don't need to annotate every move and say something about every move. What's your rating, Alf Books? El Tigro, if you DM me on Discord or email me, prus@gmail.com, I'll send you the application. I've got like a student intake questionnaire / application. I have a couple of videos up already about this topic. Oh, I just looked up like a video of my game analysis, and there's like a rapid game that I played a million years ago against Fabiano Caruana. That's funny. Analyzed by somebody else. How did anybody ever find that game? $14.89 rapid. Okay, I made a video just for you, Alf Books. I mean, not just for you, but that's exactly your rating. Let me find it for you. Here's 2 videos for you to answer your question instead of me trying to answer it on stream right now. There. You can take those home with you and study them. All right. So one of those videos that I sent is specifically for like 1400 to 1600 level players. So it's specifically for Alf. And the other is longer and discusses more different levels and what they should do. Yeah, I disagree with Chester Bennington about using the engine. You shouldn't use it at all. You don't actually need to identify where you went wrong. You just need to practice thinking. A coach can definitely help with that, like Pagel says, yeah. All right. Savage is saying there's like a question for me in a Discord channel or something. Is that right? I'll have to go look at it off stream. Sorry. Let's look at one more game here. Yeah, I think you shouldn't use the engine even after you've gone over it yourself. All right, let's see this game. This is Falk versus Deep Lagrange. Falk has a number of questions about it. Did not know the theory, but just made good moves and happened to make a million moves of opening theory. Everything until rook b1 is opening theory. It's funny you should ask me that, Metabolic. I answered that very question today on stream for the first time all year. So I guess I'll answer it twice this year. It's pretty much like Marion said. Tactics are short-term opportunities that will disappear if you do not seize them immediately. And strategy are long-term operations that are not particularly time-dependent. It's really about whether it's time-dependent, not like how many moves it is, because like in Rogue's definition of tactics where they say 2 to 4 moves, I mean, a tactic could be 8 moves long, right? You still have to seize it on that first move. If you don't start the tactical sequence immediately and play some other move first, you know, improving your king or something, then on the next move you won't have that tactic available. So Wow. Falk's got a million like comments about this, or a dozen. But let me just find for myself what's critical, because it sounds like a lot of like in the weeds detail stuff. Some things were missed here and there, but let me see if there's any big picture thing for Falk to work on in this game. But they exist as far as the definition of tactics. They exist, even if you can't calculate them. Grandmasters. Those are really separate things, Great Wolf. Grandmasters play improving moves when they don't have a tactic. They don't get away with playing an improving move and then have the same tactic available the next move. But Grandmasters are usually playing other Grandmasters, and they don't have a lot of tactical opportunities. You're playing people who are giving you tactical opportunities nonstop. So that's why you have to pull the trigger on tactics. Your opponents are playing moves like, you know, like b4. And then if you take the pawn, you're up a pawn. And if you play like a6 to stop b5 and they play rook b1, then it's too late to take the pawn. You know, that doesn't happen in GM games. All right. Let me get a quick view of the game and then hone in on something useful here. Complicated position. Whoa. Okay. Yikes, this knight's in trouble. Okay, here is probably the position where Falk said that you missed takes here. But I don't know if you were going to do that or if you had a plan on it. I mean, maybe just bishop e4. Yeah, maybe queen e2 instead of rook b1, but Falk says that up to this point it was all opening theory. With queen e2, there may be some danger of something like this, because this stuff is still here. Or knight d5 instead of knight e4. Anyway, I'm not going to argue with opening theory right now. I'm going to try and figure out what Falk could improve on. Now this c6 pawn's kind of left behind. Sort of useless looking. Game's very complicated. Weird retreat. Knight goes to a risky square. Gets traded by the dark squared bishop? What? Does Falk say anything about this? Falk was very optimistic here, which I wouldn't have been. The position's complicated. He said, from move 25 onwards, I was very happy with my position and did not see any compensation for him. Compensation for what? Black's got a knight and 2 pawns against a rook. That's just a game. Black doesn't need compensation. They just have a fine position. Fancy stuff. Yikes. Yikes. Rook g7 on move 33. Rook g7 doesn't seem possible here. Oh, rook e7. He did play rook e7. Oh, he must mean rook g2. But it's check. How can black play rook g2? Wait, black's been in check this whole time. Check. 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 Ow. Okay, so now white's like winning. Oh! Ouch. Thanks for the raid. Fleorin, unfortunately, I don't know you or your channel just yet, so please introduce yourselves to us. We would be happy to know about what your channel's like and who you are. For the raiders, welcome to Chess Dojo. I'm David. I'm one of the 3 senseis who runs the channel, one of the 3 main teachers here. And we're looking at user games or viewer games. This is a frequent segment. We do at least once or twice a week, a sort of post-mortem analysis of games that have been played before. And Falk wondering how to win this position once the king's on the run. Yeah, I mean, this position should be very, very winnable right here. Whew. I don't like bringing the knight to a better square. Probably this makes sense. Check. King here. Looks like the only legal move. And then bring this piece over to try and checkmate the king. I wonder how much time Falk had. This looks pretty killer. One threat is queen f7 check, king moves and take the bishop. Another threat is rook f6 check, forcing the king to e5, and then rook goes anywhere it likes with a check to the king from the queen and picks up the queen wherever she's hiding. So this looks, I mean, looks like a winning operation. Metabolic Error says queen f6 would be good too. It's a nice third threat. I have played in Washington Square Park, yeah. Oof. Just, I mean, just devastating, right? Just devastating. So that's the answer. You should have just tried to checkmate this king. Often the best move here would be queen g5 in terms of the coordination of the white pieces, but the black queen is stopping it. But that's the first move that popped into my head here, was queen g5. Basically what you want to do is you want to take control of the dark squares with your queen. That's why I first looked at queen g5 and then queen g7. You've got a light squared bishop, they've got a light squared bishop, so your queen's better off on the color squares that the bishops aren't on. She's the only piece that's going to, you know, maneuver on those squares. Your bishop's going to cut off some light squares, right? That's why in this position, whoops, sorry. That's why in this position here, people pointed out that queen f6 is checkmate. It's because the light square is covered by the bishop. Your queen has to cover the dark squares, right? So the queen should go to a dark square. And also the queen needs to generate space for this rook to switch sides, because right now the rook's blocked by the bishop from this side, right? So you should create the space with the queen to get the rook over to the other side, right? And you can go rook f8, rook g8, rook h8, something like that to attack. So queen g5 only doesn't work because of queen g5 from black. So then the second idea is queen g7, king here. And now rook f8, and probably rook h8 also wins, but There's no reason rook h8 would be better than rook f8 here. But if like rook f8 were covered by an opponent's knight or bishop or whatever, then the secondary move we would look at would be bringing the rook across this way, right? Another useful move white could play would be h4 at some point. It gives the king more space to not get perpetualed, and it introduces bishop h3 as an idea. I realize not now, but, you know, at some point when needed. So, good, Blitz King, good. How about you? So that's one answer to how to win it. This is exactly the moment he asked about, how to win this position here. How does one know when to take a step back from the position to get a new look is the big question. In a classical game, when should you step back and get a totally new look instead of following move by move? There's a couple different times to do that, Falk. One is anytime your opponent surprises you. So, for example, I'm going to try and guess some moments where you were surprised in this game. Depending on how far ahead Falk was looking, Falk was surprised by this queen b6 idea for sure. So either at this point, Falk was surprised by knight c4, or at least at this point here, Falk was surprised by queen b6. So when a move like this surprises you, you may feel like you may even think your only legal move that doesn't lose a piece is knight e2. You should still not play it quickly. Anytime you're surprised in a classical game, that's a great time to take a step back and try and refresh your view of the game. Because having been surprised means that you had some kind of fundamental misunderstanding of what was going on in the game. And so your opponent's move being a surprise, that's the wake-up call that you're looking at the position wrong. Or not necessarily wrong, but like there's some big things you're not taking into account, and so you need to refresh and look at the position anew. That's one example. And if you look, you may find that there's another move other than knight e2, or you may at least get into the position so that even if you end up playing the same knight e2 move, when you've played knight e2, you've already sort of anticipated what kind of moves are coming from the opponent, and you're calibrated. You're not going to play a blunder on your next move. So it's very important to reorient. Yeah, they may have blundered, and that's surprising, but you need to reorient if you want to find the proper refutation for the blunder in general, right? So that's true even then, Super Llama. Very often if your opponent blundered, it's not necessarily that you were seeing the position wrong. It's that they were seeing the position wrong, but still they've surprised you, and that step back and reorientation is going to be critical to taking advantage of their mistake. Okay, and then a second time is anytime there's a big transition. Okay, so the two biggest times to reorient in a game are a surprise or a transition. Those often come at the same time, you know, but an example of a transition this game would have been the trade on c3, right? Maybe Falk didn't expect that. Maybe it was surprising to Falk that black trades the dark squared bishop basically to win the a pawn, right? That might be a surprise. Okay, if that's a surprise, that would also make this a time to reorient. But even if it wasn't a surprise, even if he had considered like, yeah, you know, they could trade and get my a pawn. If he was aware it was an idea, but thinking like, but you know, I believe in my dark squared bishop in the resulting position or whatever, right? When the transition comes in, that's still an example of the other kind of good time to stop and reorient yourself, or as Falk says, take a step back and look at the position anew, right here. That's the big question. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, now I don't understand why he's so happy about playing bishop h6 and taking the exchange here. Like, this position looked very, very complicated. And not only did this position still look complicated, but was he really winning an exchange here? I mean, Desert Pagel, you've got moves like rook f7 as well, right? Is this so, like, obviously great and overwhelming? Let's see. Is the follow-up like knight g5, and if rook takes, and checkmate? I guess that does look pretty overwhelming. But, you know, that also makes me wonder after knight f6, you know, is it so great to cash in this? Or what about playing the same move, right? Going after the king. What defense does black have here? Oh, I guess knight e5 now would keep the queen out. At first, that looks like the only really solid move for black here. Maybe there's something else. Maybe like queen d2 is possible, weirdly. Maybe this could be like a crazy move that ruins white's life. Don't trade when attacking. That's definitely not always true, Shinigami. Queen a1 pikes, Nixie. Nice idea. I guess black will still stay in the game with like knight e5 next. Wow, and pikes even looked this far ahead. Beautiful. Let that be an example to all of us to look at tactics. Whether or not you want to trade pieces while attacking depends, number one, on just rote calculation. If the trade wins for you, you do it. If it doesn't, you don't. Secondarily, on who can bring in reserves. If it's something beyond your calculation horizon, then it basically depends on who can bring in reserves. In some situations, you're attacking with like 3 or 4 pieces. Your opponent's got 1 defender. And just like you trade when you're ahead in an endgame to make your advantage more obvious, if you're attacking a kingside, your opponent's got 1 defending knight on f6, you trade it off, and then instead of 4 on 1, it's 3 on 0, and it's more obvious that you can checkmate their king. It really depends on a lot of things. Okay. And Pike's Nixie just gave us an example of trading while ahead, right? We're trading through these pieces, or trading while attacking. We're trading through these pieces to checkmate the king. Okay, but anyway, on knight g5, I suppose the simpler move would be knight e5 from black. And now white probably has nothing better to do than take it. Although notice black's not threatening to save the rook because this would be hanging. So you could also look at a wide variety of moves for white here, right? Like rook d1 comes to mind, looking at d6, which would unseat both knights. What do you guys think? Should we press our luck by not taking this rook? I mean, what's black going to do? Move the rook away. We could take the knight. Rook f7, we can take and then take the knight. Maybe queen c4, going to where the knight was, hoping to trade and recapture and defend this square. But even there, I mean, look at this. There might be this idea. Right? See, everything's hanging there. And on pawn takes, we've got takes, 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 takes. Takes everything. So Lesterlin suggesting knight g4 in some position for black. I don't know if it's before or after the take, but something like this to save the rook would be the idea. But it's also going to leave white up a piece. I missed knight g4 for black after e5, knight e5, rook d6. Oh, once the rook was on d6, maybe? Okay, let me see that. e5, knight e5, rook d6. Now knight g4. Oh, because you got two knights. So takes. Takes. At least my rook's defended, so I didn't blunder the rook. King here. Knight takes. Rook takes. What do you know? By accident, I'm still up a piece, Lesterlin. Against two pawns, but looks like one of these is going down. Yeah, and I didn't calculate anything, Lesterlin, but I just knew that I was hitting every piece. When I saw this idea here, that's why I went for the queen trade. I just knew that I would be hitting every single black piece. And sometimes it works out without calculating, though that's not what I recommend to people. I recommend your instincts should tell you what move to look at and when to calculate, but you actually have to calculate because it won't always be like logical. It won't always be like, well, I played a clearance sacrifice for my bishop, so of course, you know, knight g4 takes h6 wasn't going to work. You know, it's not guaranteed. But it does tell you what kind of moves to look at. This e5 move, that's a move that hurts. So this position's losing for black. I think. I could be missing something. You guys know I'm not in like a flow calculation zone here. Well, forsooth, I can't say for sure how every GM thinks. I do believe that all kinds of masters come up with strong moves by different processes and different thoughts, but bc4 instead, I still get this move that I wanted. So yeah, the bishop's still blocked in, but black stuff is all hanging anyway. This is winning for white as well. I'm confident. Yeah, I don't even see why he takes on f8 here. I think this knight g5 move looks really strong. There may even be some other move that's really strong here. What about e5? Opening the white bishop, right? Unseating this piece. Idea being here, same knight e5, right? Knight e5, queen e5. Everything's loose. So I agree, Great Wolf. And you guys see, to me, the punishment is not trading off white's own dark squared bishop to go up in exchange. Because what happened here is that then black, this is like a nifty trick, right? But black immediately has like a bunch of centralized pieces, coordinated, two pawns and a piece against a rook. It's like sort of anyone's game. I mean, white won once the files kind of opened up. This rook a1 maneuver, this was winning for white. So black shouldn't probably have taken the rook off the back rank here. But like, let's say black plays d5, right? A simple, solid move. I didn't look too hard for this move. It was what I expected black to play when I was playing through the game at 1 second per move. Rook f3 was a little surprise for me. But let's say black just plays the simplest possible move, just defending the knight. I mean, is anybody betting like millions of dollars on white here? Am I the only one who thinks this just looks like a random position? Perhaps white's better with really good play. Perhaps white's winning to like a GM or a computer. But if you're 1600, or if you're me playing blitz, which is similar to being 1600, then this just looks like a random position to me. If you ask me which side I want to play, I would prefer white, but not by a lot. So I think white sort of approached this wrong with cashing in for the exchange and then like this. I mean, still the right move needs to be e5. Even if you take the rook, right? It's still got to be e5. What you're trying to do is open files for your rooks and a diagonal for your bad bishop. And if you can, get something like this, where you start to open up squares around the black king, now your rooks can be effective. You can show the advantage of a rook over a knight here. What I meant by that, folks, is that my blitz play might be similar to like the classical play of a 1600. Not the blitz play of a 1600. Obviously, at blitz chess, I'm still better than somebody rated 1600. Is at blitz, but I'm talking about the chances of winning this game for like a 1600 playing classical, or for me playing blitz. If I were playing a blitz game, I would not be confident of my evaluation or winning chances here. And if I were to tell a 1600 what their odds of winning were here, I would say, still pretty close to 50-50 against another 1600. Like nobody's yet won or lost the game. That said, I mean, the e5 move here still seems like it gives white a really big advantage. It's really after rook e1, knight e4 that I don't know. I don't know about white's advantage. So I think bishop takes knight and queen a2 was a bad decision by black, but white absolutely did not play the actual punish of just grabbing an exchange and then playing this complicated position. It seems like white's got two approaches. e5, just trying to blow things open, or knight g5. And an important point is that white should be in no rush to take that rook, because black doesn't have time to save it. Right? Just like when white played bishop h6, black didn't play rook f7 here. After black plays knight f6, they still don't have time to move this rook if white keeps playing good moves. So, and the best moves are moves that are going to like go after this square here. So e5, knight g5 could be good moves. There might even be like rook a1 just going to the open file. Look at this. We just let the opponent trade. Then we play e5, right? With the idea of pawn takes, knight takes. I mean, when's black ever going to have time? Right? Now we have rook a7 available. This knight's on a bad square. And all of these pieces are pretty much hanging. So black's bad tactical elements are like a million. This thing's hanging too, in case we care. Yeah. So bishop f8 released tension for no benefit at all. So, yeah. Rook e1, 28 rook e1 is a big blunder by me. You found it very complicated. Yeah, it was. Okay, so now I understand what Falk's saying on that move. Okay. Sounds like Falk was surprised a couple times during this game. So the big question from Falk is, how do you know when to take a step back? And the answer is each time you got surprised. You know, when your opponent made the transition with bishop c3, right? This position we've just been talking about a lot. This is an example of the position that requires a step back and a reevaluation, right? What is white's advantage really here? Is it grabbing this exchange? Or is it like trying to like, you know, get the rooks active, unseat this knight, attack the king on the dark squares? And then the other thing is every time you're surprised. Every time you're surprised. So the big transitions and the surprises. Yeah, you can check the VOD, Falk. I know you missed. I could tell you missed a bunch of it, but we got a good look at the game. I think in a lot of these positions you were misevaluating like either your advantage or how to play the position, and there were a number of big transitions in the game here. Sort of dynamic, you know, one advantage is changed for another. And I think you're a bit less comfortable with that in general than like a more stable advantage in a game that changes shape only 2 or 3 times. This game changed shape many more times than that. So this is a game which was always going to be difficult for you, and it's got several moments where you need to do exactly what you were wondering about. Take a step back and reevaluate what's the position about. And you can find some really nice ideas for white, like this e5 idea or this knight g5 idea. Even that rook a1 idea. Probably rook d1's not a bad move either. Right? Like if we just play a move like this, at first you might wonder, what on earth is that move? Well, it's a move that prevents knight e5 because of knight takes knight. It's a move that prevents queen b2 because of queen takes, knight takes, rook takes d6. It's a move that doesn't give black time for rook f7 because of knight g5, right? Black never has the time, so we don't need to take it, right? And okay, if this move lets black do almost nothing, black's gonna have to play something like rook e8 or some rook developing move to help protect these squares. But if they do, you can always trade then and then play e5. You can also always just play e5 anyway. So like rook here is probably not going to prevent e5, right? e5, knight takes, rook takes, bishop takes, and the knight's hanging. Or pawn takes, bishop takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. Now I'm wondering about rook f2 before I grab this. I would like to be up a piece. Yeah. This may or may not be the most elegant way to win the game, but we'll just defend this and threaten, you know, to start raining checks on black. Easy win. So, so rook d1 might be just a winning move. Is it ever worth it to take the exchange? Sometimes. But what we're noticing is that the black rook's not yet threatening to move. So in that sense, it's kind of like a wasted tempo to do this, because this is a bad tactical element for black that they need to be prepared to recapture it. And this piece has a duty defending this. So this piece on f6 is tactically vulnerable, right? It's attacked once and defended once. There's a hidden attack from this rook on it. It's very, very vulnerable. So the fact that this rook is responsible for the knight means it's favorable for you to keep that element of extra tactical complication. It makes it more likely for black to lose material in the further things that happen. So that's a good question, Pikes and Nixie. There are plenty of positions that would be sort of like more simple, where you would just take your exchange and then keep playing from there. But here white has enough juice to keep playing tactically. And generally, you only take a piece once your opponent sort of like threatens to get out of it. To give you a very simple example, if I can set it up. Okay. I just want to show you an idea. Okay, so let's say for some reason you get like a game that's like going like this, and white lands, and white lands a tactic like rook takes bishop, pawn takes, knight c7. Okay. In this position here, let's say your opponent plays a move like king f8. You will usually not take one of the rooks. You'll usually continue to improve your position. You'll play a move like king h2 to g3, or you'll play your rook to d7. Notice here you can't because of rook e1 check. But you could centralize your king a little bit more to f1. Right? There's no reason why you would make a trade actively in this position here, because your opponent normally is going to have to spend a move like moving one of these pieces, forcing you to trade it, right? And that gives you the time to make further improvements in your position. You know, if this pawn were on h2, we might play h3 instead of taking one of the rooks, right? Or king f1 or f3 or something, right? You basically, you don't play these moves until your opponent moves one of the rooks, forcing you to do it. And if your opponent just plays king f8, you keep going here. If they play like h6, you know, you keep making improving moves for yourself. I've got no reason to like trade these pieces, right? If rook e7, I'll take and win the whole rook. Once the rook moves, then we'll take one of them. So we're just maximizing. We're gaining that tempo. We're waiting for them to threaten to actually get away before we have to take it. Good night, Forsooth. Good having you around here. Lestrelin, thank you. So you have to be careful with this idea. Black can get out of the tactic with rook d8. I mean, I just made this up on the spot. We can put the white rook on d3 if we want, you know, maybe. But then we would allow rook e1. But hopefully you understand the idea, guys. That usually you don't like burn a move doing this. You let your opponent move and then you trade. Hey, Hike. Yeah, it's been a while. The point is still clear. Okay, good. So that's the point that applies over here to this bishop takes rook. I was trying to create a simpler version of it to show the idea that we don't need to take this until it's actually like taking the time to get away. And let's say I play my super high-class rook d1 move, which I really love now that I've thought of it, right? If I play this move, let's say my opponent's like, oh, shoot, I have to play a move like rook d8 or rook e8 to deal with like e5 coming at some point, or to be able to play knight e5 for myself, right? And then I take. Isn't it clear, like in that knight c7 version, that we basically let the opponent, we improved our position. And then when they did something that we had to deal with, then, you know, maybe we trade. Right? And now we're prepared to just, you know, crack everything. So, so that's my perspective on bishop takes f8. It's not like the dark squared bishop's always worth a rook. No, not necessarily. You know, I think if the rook could move away without hanging the knight, there's many scenarios where the rook could outperform the bishop despite the dark square weaknesses. So it's not that the bishop's always better than the rook, or that the dark squares are so weak, or the value of the pieces has like changed dramatically in some way. I mean, the bishop is a good piece. There is a question of what the value of the different pieces is in this point, but it's really this sort of just like timing and tactical energy point. So yeah. So the point is we have a favorable tactical element. Their pieces like can't move and are defending each other. So we don't need to resolve any of those tensions until it's favorable for us. And the rook's not getting away. Let them like waste time like trying to somehow threaten like rook f. Like when is the opponent even threatening to get out of any of this stuff, right? Is black threatening rook f7, knight g5 here? Probably not, right? So if I wanted to improve my position even more here, I could, right? If it were better for my king not to be on the row with the queen and out of the way of knight g4, I can play king h1 still in a position like this and say, now you've really got no defense to bishop f8, e5, right? But as it turns out, I mean, I don't need any more time here. E5 or bishop f8, e5 now really end the game. That one tempo of putting the rook here completely for free, since black had nothing useful to do, that's what wins. So, fair? Logique? We understand? All right. Good session, everybody. We'll leave it at that for tonight. I'll get some sleep. I'll be back on tomorrow. I'll also publish a schedule tomorrow for the coming week. Been working on it a little bit today. So, I will stream a little preview. I'll stream Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. And we'll have a Mega Rapid Championship 8-rounder on Friday. We'll have another tournament on Sunday. So we'll have a full week coming up. Both my kids are going to school this week. So yeah. So we'll release the details tomorrow, and tomorrow, it'll be XClam schedule to see what the schedule is. That's not useful or accurate right now. I'm just teaching you guys how to find the schedule if it helps you tomorrow. And I'll see you then. Oh yeah, also, I mean, pairings for round 4 of the Classical. Many of you are involved in this Classical tournament. Pairings for round 4 of the Classical should be basically done right now. So you can probably go find your games. Pairings under 11:30. I see full pairings. Pairings 11:30 to 14:01 is not paired just yet. What are we doing if people aren't filling in the form for the Classical? What do you mean by that, Scott? We could talk on Discord if there's an issue as well. The 1400 to 1600 section looks like it's all paired for round 4. 1650 to 1835, not yet paired. 1850 plus is paired. So 3 of the sections are already paired. The other 2 should be. Oh, you don't have all the results. Well, if people didn't put in their results, then they don't get paired in round 4, Scott. Just pair the people who reported their results in this spreadsheet. I mean, I see there are some results here that haven't been grayed out. Paul versus Artigum, Legit Tactics versus Maxim Linek. The 1650 to 1835 results, it looks like, haven't been tabulated. But your section is 1130-ish to 1400, and there are just some results missing. Assume those people have dropped out of the tournament if you like. Yeah, just assume they're gone and pair the people who you have. I mean, one of them is Dr. Chainsaw, who was in here tonight. Are you there, Dr. Chainsaw? What happened between you and Luca the Dawn? You guys play? You guys quit? Let Scott know. Yeah, I would just go ahead and pair everybody else at this point, Scott. Because, it's time for pairings if they haven't put in results. They managed to do it the previous week, so they should know. They should know how to do it. And, the other 25 people in your section or whatever will want to see their pairings. So, all right, guys, let's send out a raid. Let's check out the chess mood, shall we? So, some kind of an Armenian Grandmaster cooperative, I think, unless somebody else has grabbed their name, but it's what I think it'll be. So go check that out, see what you guys think of them. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, daytime and maybe nighttime as well. Should be able to stream twice a day most days this week.
Save. I think it